Hello, this is a real quick demo for how to go about installing GitCAD. So first things first, you want to go to releases. It'll be just the latest release over here, but I'm going to go to releases for my case, and you would just basically download this file from the latest release. Cool. Open that file, and you're going to go to the repository you want to convert. So this is a repository that I'm trying to convert right here. So as you can see, I basically added a FreeCAD file over here. This is just a README change. I added the FreeCAD file here, and I'm going to go ahead and instead of adding this full FreeCAD file over here, incidentally, this repository is using GitLFS to store the FreeCAD file completely. So we want to convert that over to a GitCAD solution. But yeah, I'm going to go and rewrite the history of this repository so that this file, instead of being stored in its full form on GitLFS servers, it's just directly stored as a FreeCAD file, or as a GitCAD file, I guess you could say. So yeah, so step one, going over to the website, process of going ahead and making sure you have your dependencies, and then making sure FreeCAD is set up correctly. So to set up FreeCAD correctly, I'm going to go ahead and type start and then skeletons and the file that I want to go ahead and open. So let's just open up FreeCAD real quick and configure the settings. So you go under Tools, Edit Parameters, and then you'll see under Preferences, Document, you'll look over here for an item labeled as Backup Policy. You'll notice in this case it doesn't exist for me, and that's probably most likely what's going to be the same for you. You just right-click over here, create a new Boolean item, set the name exactly to Backup Policy as it is written on there, and you go ahead and set this to false as your initial value. So you'll see we have backup policy over here listed as false. The purpose of this is basically FreeCAD, whenever you save a file, it will overwrite the, if a file is set to read-only, and if a FreeCAD file is set to read-only, you make a change to that file and you save that change, it will actually overwrite that file even though it's set to read-only. So the setting, all it does is basically makes it so that when you make a save on GitHub or on FreeCAD and the file is set to read-only, it will throw an error saying, hey, I cannot actually make this save because this file is set to read-only. And the purpose for that is because when you use locks to lock a file, one of the primary ways to indicate that a user is not able to modify that file because somebody else is working on it is by having GitCAD or GitLFS set that file to read-only. So that's its purpose of why we have that setting changed over there. Anyways, so that's that. Okay, now that we have configured those settings in FreeCAD, we can go on to the next setting part of actually installing GitCAD to the repository. So going back to this repository over here, my first step is I'm actually going to go ahead and reset to just before this file was added. So I'm just going to git reset to origin/main, or I guess I could just do head 1, git hard, and now I'm going to do git reset head up 1 soft. Now if I do git status, we'll see that we have this shell file. I'm going to go ahead and okay, cool. So now we basically have this FreeCAD file as left as uncommitted right now. So so we're just before we've added any FreeCAD files. Cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to the attributes section. And this was set when I was planning on using LFS storage to store this FreeCAD file. I'm just going to delete that and clear out this git attributes so we have a clean git attributes once again. And now I'm going to go ahead and continue with the instructions for installing GitCAD. So first, I'm going to want to download and extract the latest release into the root of my repository. So we go here and we find the file that I have saved in downloads that I downloaded earlier, this FreeCAD file, the zip file. So we open up that, go to the repository, which is going to have to go here, Project Kate, cool. and we're going to go and drag and drop that right in there. Cool. With that installed over there, we can now continue on with the instructions. So we are going to go ahead and actually run the initialization script now. So I'm going to go ahead and user scripts, initialize repo. You'll only have to do this the one time. Well, like technically twice here. But after that, you'll see that it unblocks all the files, and that's what's causing the issue. Like you right-clicking the file, clicking properties, and click unblock. Once you run the script the one time, it will go ahead and unblock all the files in the folder that you have added if you're on Windows. But yeah, so now that that's done, it will see that you've created a new file config, and it's located in the FreeCAD Automation subdirectory. So if I go here, FreeCAD Automation, you'll see this config file in here, and it's asking us to go ahead and define this the Python instance path over here. So this is basically where's the Python executable that is bundled with FreeCAD. So the best way to do that is to just go ahead and search FreeCAD, and go ahead and open the file location. Right-click that, click open file location again, and it will be in the FreeCAD instance. And if we type /, and it will see, oh, so FreeCAD is installed here, but Python is also installed in the same executable file in the binary folder. So if I go / and search Python, you'll see python.exe exists in the same folder. We can do that, and we can just paste this. And the last thing we have to do is basically change these / to /. So there you go. Now it's done. You have the FreeCAD Python instance path specified in the config file. You can close out of that, and we can go ahead with the next step, which is running the file. Once again, you'll see over here, run it again. So we run the file again, and this time it's going to go through and make sure everything is set up correctly. Everything is set as desired, and there we go. Voila. Now if we do a get status, we'll see that we have some modifications over here. So one thing to note, if you go to the git ignore, it's going to go ahead and make sure that it's going to add the config.json file to the list of ignores, and it's going to make sure the PyCache is added over here to the list of ignores, and also it's going to ignore fcmod files. In addition, it's also going to go ahead, if you go to the attributes, we'll see that it will add an attribute to filter for all FC standard files regardless of the case, and it's going to add set it to a filter. It's going to add lock files over here and make this blah, 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 blah. Its point is going to add this stuff over here. So the files will be automatically tracked with LFS, and log files are tracked with LFS over here, and lock files required to be locked before they can be modified. So that gives you all of that stuff. And then from there, we can go on to the next part, which is testing your configurations. So now you can go ahead back to the config file, and you can actually make changes to this. So if you go to the README file on the GitCAD page, it actually goes over and covers everything, what each of these stuff do over here, and a bit more on what everything is. But for a basic rundown, this over here, require lock, will basically make it so that if you want to lock a file, if you want to make a change to a file, you have to first lock it with git lock, and then pass to the file that you're locking, so that it will show up if you do git locks. You'll see a list of, oh, there's not going to be any lock. Oh, I guess there is. Yeah, so I have the lock for this shell.fc standard file, or the shell file over here from a previous attempt at porting this over to GitCAD. But yeah, so basically nobody else but me can make a change to this file. I'm actually going to go ahead and unlock that because that's a remnant of a previous demo of the same thing. Git unlock, or it's going to be git lfs unlock ID, and I want this ID to unlock that. Yeah. Now if I do git lock, so you'll see that the file doesn't exist anymore. Cool. Clear. So yeah, so that basically requires locks before you can modify, make pushes, or anything like that. Basically, it ensures that a user has locked before they actually make any changes to the state of the repository. Include thumbnails is just, you know what, I'm not going to go over it. The main thing to show over here is going to be these two over here. So this uncompressed directory structure determines the structure in which files are saved. So if I go ahead, so to test this export, like let's say if we go git status, it won't show it, but inside the skeletons files, we'll see that there is a FreeCAD file named shell, right? And if I want to go and showcase what exporting that looks like, I can do git f export and then skeletons shell.fc standard. Oh, I'm going to need to activate GitCAD. So to activate GitCAD, if you see this error, all it's basically saying is just do /FreeCAD user scripts activate, and it will run that, and it will do it. This is with PowerShell. If you're using Bash, you're going to do it's a little bit different syntax. You just do source FreeCAD user scripts activate, and then it will activate GitCAD like this. And then to deactivate it, you just do deactivate GitCAD, and it will deactivate it like that, and deactivate GitCAD. It will still deactivate it like that. Anyways, I'm still going to reactivate this, and then I'm going to do git f export and then skeletons shell.fc standard. Cool. So we're going to export it, and then it's going to finish exporting it. And now, basically, how you set this up will determine what directory the exported contents will be exported to. So this is like a subdirectory and then the prefix of it. So what does that mean? So if I go to here, go to skeletons, and if I go to this, so this is the shell that we exported. You'll see it creates this uncompressed directory over here. That's described over here as the subdirectory over here. And then inside that, it will have the shell, and then this is where this fc standard underscore shell underscore fc standard, and that is where the actual extracted contents of the FreeCAD file are placed over here. So you'll see in it, we have, so if this is set to false, instead of creating this uncompressed directory, this file would just be put, this folder would just be put over here. It would just be put outside over here. And then these prefixes define like these parts over here. This part is just the name of the FreeCAD file, obviously. And then over here, we have the prefix and the suffix of the file. Located over here. So I'm going to decide that I actually don't like this configuration, and I would prefer to just have it with as just shell underscore fc standard. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and delete this uncompressed directory that was created, and I'm going to go ahead and then get rid of this part over here. So I'm just left with the suffix. I'm going to make that save, and then if I go git f export it again, export it, we'll see that it creates a directory again, and this time it's stored kind of correctly with this underscore fc standard. So that's basically what I'm describing over here in this part of the, damn, my browser just closed out on me. What I'm describing over in yeah, over here. Oh no, test your configurations right here. F export possibility. So yeah, so basically just mess with that and make sure everything is up to your likings as well. In addition, you also can go ahead and over here, this part over here, set to true. Any file that matches one of these in this uncompressed directory, or in this directory that you're exporting to, will be compressed into a zip file over here. So for instance, if I go back to here and open up here, we'll see this compressed binaries file. And inside we have things like the thumbnail, and we have like all these files that don't have any extensions in them, mirrors this folder over here. But since everything in there is globbed with this thing, they're all in here instead. But yeah, so all the files that have no extensions are in there, and then also files that matches, like these BRP files and map files and stuff like that that aren't exactly really human readable, or they're literally just binary files. Those are compressed in a zip file, and then this zip file is matched with this LFS attribute, so it's going to be stored using large file storage. So if I go ahead and do a, I can verify that this zip file matches what is expected by going back over here, and if I do git check adder all, and if I do this and I do skeletons uncompressed shell, and then I go what's the uncompressed binaries.zip, we'll see that this file over here is matched to this LFS filter over here. So that way we know that this filter is correctly globbing up this compressed binary file over here. So that's being globbed up correctly. And then, oh, right, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So what else do we have here? If I go back to the, this is not the right one. Close out of this. This, and if I go back to the config file over here, yeah, so you can set the compression level for this compressed binary, and you basically are globbing up what's going to be in that stored in that binary file. If you set this to false, then it's not going to do any compression like that at all, and it's just going to leave everything completely uncompressed in this directory, including the binary files. So there's that option. So I'm happy with this config file. So what's the next step? So the next step is this. I want to make this the default config file. Minus this part over here, because it's going to be for, but basically for other people. So if somebody else comes along and clones this repository, I want them to have their repository obviously match this, because otherwise they won't really be able to contribute effectively. The only thing that other users should have to change when they clone this repository is this path to their FreeCAD file. So to go and change that, I'm just going to go into the user scripts and this init repo script over here. And if I scroll down to the create config file section, we'll see this is the default, where the default config file is defined over here. So we want to leave this as empty for other users, but we do want to make this change over here where the prefix should match our new desired default prefix, which is going to be having no prefix at all, and we just have it the suffix for _fc standard file at the end. And yeah, so that's going to be our new default. We're going to save, consider that all good and done, and go back over here. We see that we are done. So modify the default config file in this over here. Yep, leave that as empty. Right, cool. So another thing that you have is options. So this is going to be set by default. This get LFS track over here is why if we go into the get attributes section, we have this zip file over here. But for the sake of what if if we had this set to false, just to show you what it's like, I'm going to go ahead and delete this uncompressed directory, and we're just going to go ahead and export it again. Cool. Let's go ahead and export it, the file again. If we go back over here into here, we'll see that now we don't have that zip file, and all these files over here are exported. Even the binary files and the thumbnails and all this stuff. Like if I try and open this up with a text editor, right? Okay, maybe that's a bad example. Can we get one that actually has some binary data? I mean, this is like not text. Even though it looks like text, it's really not. Let's see. A more obvious one would just be like a BRP file. Really? Okay, well, just hit me with a, okay, just trust me, all right? These are, come on. What the heck? Anyways, okay, just trust me that most of these files are all like binary files and not really text files that are meant to be human read and stuff. But yeah, so for those files, for those specific files, it's probably better to, instead of storing them in as a text, we want to store them in large file storage if we have them left as uncompressed. And so for that case, it is recommended that we add these like pathing over here for files to compress to the get attributes as like a list of thing to compress. So like for instance, okay, point is what I'm trying to say is that if I do git check adder, okay, sure, we'll just do that again. Copy this, paste this, and if I do, let's see what file, like this BRP file, so part BRP, we'll see that it has no attribute associated with this file. But this file we want to be tracked with large file storage because BRP files are going to go and become, typically because they're binary, they're going to become these massive files that we don't want to actually store directly on GitHub or the repository. We would want to use some other large file storage system to store these larger files. So we're going to add those attributes to be LFS tracked as is recommended over here. So basically, if we go ahead and add this and this and this, lastly, this, right? And now we run that check adder again. We'll see that now this BRP file is being correctly identified as a file that should be stored using large file storage. And so that's why it's being marked over here. Same with any file that is located in the, for instance, no extension something, yeah, line array. There you go, large file storage. So that was the purpose of that. We're basically adding those extra files to large file storage. This is technically optional if you are not if you are not storing everything as a zip file. I'm obviously going to want to store mine in a zip file, and so technically this is extra, but I mean, might as well include them because they are technically binary files that I wouldn't want to be, even if they weren't in a zip file, I would not want them to be stored in anything but large file storage. So I'm going to leave these additional filters in over here. Anyways, going back to it, I'm going to go ahead and delete that folder and not this. Go back to here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that folder. I am satisfied with my current configuration with compress being set to true and everything is set correctly. Cool. So on to the next step. So now we've verified that the check catcher, that everything that we want in get attributes is correctly stored with LFS. And now we can go ahead and update the README for documentation. This is an option. There is a template.md over here. And if we copy this, we can actually go ahead and just directly replace the README with that. Its purpose is basically to give other users who clone your repository a general idea of how to get themselves set up running or working with GitCAD. And yeah, so that's just that nice template for getting themselves up and running, working with your repository. Goes over initializing the repository and then also updating GitCAD if somebody goes ahead and makes an update installs an update for GitCAD, what other people need to do to make sure that their configuration files are still correctly working with the new version of GitCAD, and then also just a general overview for how GitCAD works over here. So I'm going to save that, and then that is the end of the installation part. So yeah, so all that's left is just to do git status, git add, and we'll see that here, when we do git add, it will actually go ahead and export the file. We'll do git status. We have a nice situation here. Where we have everything working perfectly fine. We have the uncompressed file over here, and we have an empty FC standard file over here. This file is empty from Git's perspective, but is, yeah, because it's a new file, it's showing up over here. And then, yeah, so now we can go ahead and do a git net-m initial GitCAD commit. Cool. If I go back here, we'll see that we have our on main and we have fixed this. I'm actually also going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do I want any of this stuff over here? No, that's all can be left. Cool. All right, cool. So yeah, that's just a real quick intro for what it's like installing GitCAD to your repository and getting it all set up. Thank you.